So we are here with Ray Leczynski, and he is the Republican nominee for state representative in the 36th Middlesex District. We appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
I'm glad to be here, and thanks for the opportunity.
So I guess the first question would just be a little background. You live here in town. You live here in Dracut. Are you a lifer from the area?
I am born in Dracut. Spent my whole life in Dracut, except for the 4 years when I was in the Air Force.
Oh yeah.
In fact, I'm back in the house that I grew up in.
Really?
Yeah. Well, long story. I won't bore you with it all, but my father built the home. And it's
very nice.
It's situated on what was my grandparents' farm. So you know what Farmer Dave's is?
Sure.
Right? That was my grandparents' farm. So it was our family that put it into the CPA. But I really think we're spending too much on social issues and not enough on public safety and infrastructure.
In terms of that, would you like to see, I guess, the overall budget cut, or just more, do you see it needing to be reallocated?
Well, I would like to see us get back to the 5% income tax and a 5% sales tax, live in those, parameters, and then reallocation. But it's going to take some different ideas because, 2 million of our residents are on mass health.
Right.
That's a lot of money, but could we do something different? Think outside the box. What about a program where maybe the state helps people become doctors and nurses, and in return they give service for that. Still get paid, but right. So maybe we could set up some, like the walk-in clinics and things of that nature. I think would be cheaper than going through mass health, right? And then we know there's fraud, right? Including through we say, illegal immigrants can't get benefits, but we know Social Security. I just heard on the radio, 39 million Social Security numbers have been stolen, right?
Right.
And
right.
That's
identity theft. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, and I'm not unsympathetic. I just think we need to worry about our children, our seniors, and our veterans before we can worry about people from another country.
I'll ask you a question that I had asked at the Democratic State Senate debate a couple weeks back. A couple of things that have gone on in the past couple of years in terms of generating more tax revenue for the state. Expanded legalized casino gambling. A court case just basically legalized sports gambling, and now, of course, legalized marijuana is in process. These things are going to generate additional tax dollars for the state. Is it worth having those things legalized? Is the payoff worth having those things legalized in Massachusetts?
I think that's a mixed bag with those two issues. As far as the casinos will provide a good number of jobs, and I'm not really a big guy on legislating behavior, personal behavior.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm good with the casinos. I wonder how effective they'll be where Connecticut has them already. We'll see. It remains to be seen. But I think with casinos there is the opportunity for good jobs. Marijuana is a little different story. What I'm concerned about with marijuana is that the tax is 3%, right? And I'm concerned that that's not enough to cover some of the expenses that some towns may incur because of the legalization, right? So that's my concern there.
Yeah.
And part of me also says that, the sin taxes for liquor and cigarettes are a heck of a lot more than 3%, right? So why did marijuana get off the hook, right? But my only real issue with marijuana legalization is before they made it legal, they should have worked out two particular items, right? If I work for a company and they have as a condition of employment random drug testing, and I come up positive for marijuana, they can discipline me, but it's legal. How does that work?
I see.
That should have been. So are people going to lose their jobs using a legal substance? And you know, marijuana and alcohol are different, right? You know, alcohol is in your system for a certain amount of time. Marijuana is in your system a lot longer,
Right.
And I'm not condoning someone lighting up a joint on the way to work, but it could have been on the weekend,
Right.
So that should have been worked out. And the second thing is, I really wish they would have had a roadside sobriety test for marijuana before they
Sure.
legalized it. Because what's the guideline there? You know, how's a cop going to know if someone's impaired or not? You know,
Right.
That should have been worked out for us as well.
Sure. Another funding issue that's been talked a great deal about is education funding, and whether the system for education funding, how it applies to special education, how it applies to transportation, etc. Do you feel that that's something that is working right now, or is that something that you would also like to see revamped, taken a new look at?
Definitely revamped. So it's more than just recalculating Schedule 70, right?
Right.
If you look at towns like Dracut and Tingsboro, they're middle of the pack, right? And then you have cities like Lawrence and Lowell that are getting a lot more per student than Dracut and Tingsboro. And then you have the towns like Lexington that gets a lot less, right? So if you just reshuffle that, Dracut and Tingsboro are still in the middle of the pack.
Right.
Right. So there's a couple things. I have two issues. That when the state mandates something, they should have to fund it.
All right. Sure.
So if you know, like the circuit breaker or transportation for special, those are good programs, right? The state should have to fund it, right? And so I know there's another representative that's looking at that now. I'd like to work with him on that. And also, I wish we could start moving towards more local control of the curriculum in the schools. I don't like a top-down approach to our schools. It's too important. I think they should be local. You know, like for example, here in Dracut, where they're going to do an audit of the schools, and it's about the buildings, the facilities, and that. I said, why aren't we auditing the curriculum? That's the state. We can't touch it.
I see.
That's not right. You know, we need to have some local control over the curriculum.
So I'm guessing not to put words in your mouth, but I'm guessing not a big fan of the Common Core curriculum.
Right. You know, I mean, I think parents and teachers, we have to get parents and teachers back together. Right. You know, I've spoken to a lot of people. Teachers aren't happy, and parents aren't happy. In Dracut, Tingsboro seems to be much happier with their school system. Right? But in Dracut, a lot of parents aren't happy and teachers aren't happy. We need to get them back working together. It's for the good of the kids. You know?
Right.
You know?
That brings up an interesting point. You know, your first time running for office, I'm sure you've had a chance to meet a lot of people, chat with a lot of people in both Dracut and Tingsboro. What has surprised you maybe? You know, you've lived here your whole life, but what has kind of surprised you, or what have you learned about these communities while you've been out on the campaign trail?
Yeah. You know, Dracut, it surprised me how dissatisfied parents are with the schools going back to schools. I was very surprised. That's a very common theme, especially when we get to the high school level, that we have parents that are sending their kids to private schools. Now, you know, just anecdotally, I mean, so we spend in Dracut spends about $14,000 per student. Tingsboro does better. you can a Central Catholic education is about $14,000.
Right.
Why is what's Central Catholic doing that parents are pleased with that Dracut's not? Again, goes back to let's getting those teachers and parents back together.
Sure.
And other than that, I know Dracut's a lot of hardworking people. They want to come home and enjoy their life and not worry about taxes going up all the time in Tingsboro, they have a lot of the same concerns. So they're happy with the schools, but I think the concerns over there. I mean, you hear people talk about sidewalks, but I think a bigger concern is maybe the fire department over there.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, could needs a little more. Needs to be a little bigger. It's a big town. It's a spread out town. That's a concern over there. And what's very encouraging in Tingsboro, I think they recognize they have access to Route 3, and if they can do something with that Middlesex Road area, as far as they voted to bring sewer in there to attract more restaurants, a source of businesses is, businesses are the best source of income, right? They don't
Absolutely.
They don't send kids to school, and you get to tax them on both the property and the real property and the personal property. And they provide jobs, which
Right.
produces more revenue, right? So business is the key, and I think they're working towards that.
Right. Throughout the Republican Party, and we saw it with in the primary a few weeks ago. Not everybody within the Republican Party has been especially happy with the job being done by Governor Baker.
Mm-hmm.
As a candidate, as a Republican, how do you feel about the job that he's done during his time as governor?
I support Governor Baker. I think but I also have my differences with Governor Baker.
Okay.
I think there are some really good things he's done, and let's face it, he has to try to get things done with an opposing party supermajority. But I wish he would have taken a couple of tougher stands. But I will say things that he's done that I think are really good. He has tried to get more money towards the towns. He is trying to control spending and working to curb some of the mass health costs. The dosing reductions for opioids, I think,
Right.
was a really good move. He's for the death penalty for cop killers,
Right.
which I support. I've recently heard him talk about manslaughter charges for drug dealers.
Right.
I think that's a good thing. I fully intend that I would be able to work with him and get some more good things. Another good thing he's done as a CPA, it benefits me. Every 2 years I have to renew my license.
Right.
It used to be this paper form that I filled out. And there's been tremendous strides with renewing licenses online, which is much better.
Sure.
So there's a lot of good he's done, and I support him going forward.
Excellent. You mentioned about the opioid crisis, and that's certainly something that has plagued the Merrimack Valley quite a bit. Dracut's in a position where it's kind of it's on the border, and it's also in between a couple of cities and whatnot. And Tingsboro, as you said, right on Route 3, that puts it right on the corridor. How do you feel about what's been going on to fight the opioid crisis, and are there things that you'd like to see the state do maybe more to fight that?
Right. Most definitely. I mean, the opioid crisis is probably the biggest challenge we have right now. It's stealing our children. Everybody knows someone who's been affected by it.
Right.
You talked about something that surprised me. How many grandparents are raising children because of opioids? And what disappoints me on the state level is that we hear about more beds. The last minute budget, opioid bill passed, methadone for inmates. That's nobody talks about prevention in the first place, right? We can't allow judges to let drug dealers out the back door because of their immigration status. We have to be tough on drug dealers, right? We have to cut the source, and I know President Trump's wall may be controversial, but if that did anything to stem fentanyl from coming in this country, I would 100%. We have to get tough on opiates. It wasn't like this when we were kids,
No.
right? And the other thing that that nobody talks about is the role of mass health in that, right? How much money is mass health spending on opioids? I personally know of someone. I'm certainly not going to mention any names.
Right.
But a young woman overdosed, and the mass health was paying for the pills, right? And so I mean, yes, we need rehabilitation. No way would I support clean injection centers or anything like that. That makes it easier, right? But we need to focus more on prevention, right, in the first place.
Let me ask you, along those lines, one of the things that some of the communities have adopted is a program through the DA's office, basically for the users, not the pushers,
Yeah.
but it's kind of a alternative treatment. Instead of going to jail for using, sending them
Yeah.
to a treatment program. Is
Yeah.
that something that you
I would love that.
support?
I would love that.
Yeah.
I mean, putting people in jail for using drugs is not effective.
Right.
They're probably still getting the drugs while they're in jail.
That may well be.
Right? So if I would very much support, as an alternative to jail for a drug user rehabilitation.
And you mentioned also about judges being tougher. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you how you felt. There is a movement among some, mostly within the Republican Party, to impeach, remove Judge Feely
Yeah.
from up in the North Shore regarding a specific case where Judge Feely had allowed somebody out on I guess personal recognizance or low bail, and then they went out and did a worse crime. And is, in terms of holding judges accountable, do you feel that that's appropriate to work to remove a judge, or is there other things to do to hold judges accountable for decisions, or should they be held accountable?
Yes, they should be held accountable, and that's one of the legislature's responsibility is judicial review, and I commend Representative Lyons for leading this, and I commend our Representative Colin Gary for supporting him on that. All right, I just don't let it die. Keep pushing it, because we a little bit of habit sometimes where legislators will raise a ruckus but then let it fall off. Right? We need to hold judges. I'm not saying you're going to review every judge's decision, but I mean, you look at the case of Judge Feely. I mean, there's two very questionable decisions there.
Right.
There's letting the drug dealer out because it was a money crime,
Right.
and there's the guy he let out that ended up killing the sheriff in Maine.
Right.
So that's someone that deserves a judicial review.
Very good. As you've gotten to meet a lot of people, I'm sure that despite living here your whole life, you've met a lot of people, residents that you've never met before.
Sure.
A lot of folks you didn't know.
Yeah.
What do you want the voters of Tingsboro and Dracut? What do you want them to know about you? What's important for them to know about you as a person?
Well, I'm hard-working, honest guy, right? And one of the things I'm running on is I'm not going to quit my job if I'm elected, right? Because as soon as you quit your job and become a full-time politician, now you owe your allegiance to the donors and the groups that are going to contribute to your campaign. I want to be independent the whole time I'm in there. Right? I'm at a point in my life My daughter's grown up and on her own. I'm not married. I'm alone. I can handle 2 jobs. It was that good private sector experience. And you know, the first thing I did when I was going to run is first thing I did was checked with the state ethics. You know, could I do it? You know, where I worked for the town of Ipswich, could I run?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that was clear. And then I talked to my boss and said, this is what I want to do. And they said, you know, I said, I'm still going to put my time in. I may have to be flexible, you know, like Wednesdays and when the house is in session. I might not be in that day, you know, but, you know, if I have to stay late or if I have to come in on Saturday to do my work, you know, that coming in Saturday is almost better when you're accountant, right? Get rid of the, get rid of all that, right? So I'm honest, hardworking, and I will be fiercely independent when I represent the people of Dracut.
Very good. Very good. Now, if people want to know more about you, know more about your campaign, find out more about, how do they do that?
Best chance is rayforrep.org. We have an issues page there where you can see where I stand on the issues I'm most passionate about. There's a bio page there so you can learn about me and my background, and I've been told it's a compelling story, so check it out.
Good, that's good. Good to know.
And if there's anything specific that anybody wants to know, follow that link to the email, and I will get back to you. And fair warning, it's been known that when someone asks me a question, they end up getting a knock on the door. So fair warning. Fair warning.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Ray Leczynski, we appreciate the time. A candidate, Republican candidate for the 36th Middlesex District.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank
Anytime.
you very much.